Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Yonit Arthur. I'm an audiologist and coach. You're on the Steady Coach. And today we're going to be talking about how to know if you are actually recovering from neural circuit dizziness, meaning medically unexplained chronic dizziness symptoms, often diagnosed as PPPD or 3PD, MdDS, Malda-de-Barkman syndrome, or vestibular migraine, but may have many other names, including central dizziness, including chronic subjective dizziness, including post-concussion syndrome, and many others, and also including those of you who did have damage to one ear, but you haven't compensated or gotten better from the problem in the expected period of time with vestibular therapy. You may already be asking yourself, why in the world are we devoting an entire video to talking about how to know if you're recovering? I'm going to know that I'm recovering when my symptoms get better, right? Well, yes, that's one way, but it's definitely not the only way, and you're going to need other ways to tell, and we're going to talk about why in a moment. But I first want to welcome anyone here who's new to my channel. Please be sure to subscribe so that I can let you know when new content comes out. And also, if you're new to the idea of neural circuit dizziness, I would very, very strongly suggest you either pause the video here and watch my intro video that explains the basics of neural circuit dizziness, or you consider taking my free course, 100% free, very comprehensive, puts all the stuff together on my YouTube channel into an understandable step-by-step process. And again, thousands and thousands of people have taken it. You can take it too. Please sign up for that using the link below or going to my website, thesteadycoach.com/free-course. So why do you need ways of telling if you're actually recovering from symptoms other than the symptoms themselves? Well, you probably already know this if you're here on my channel, but chronic dizziness is a wild ride. It is incredibly inconsistent. You're going to have days where you feel good. You're going to have days when you feel bad. You're going to have ups and downs sometimes throughout the day. Triggers might even be inconsistent for you. Sometimes it'll feel like your symptoms have no rhyme or reason, and it is incredibly easy under those circumstances to get confused and to ask yourself and question, am I actually getting better from this? In addition, many of you with chronic dizziness symptoms are also dealing with a ton of anxiety. Some of you had anxiety before symptoms. Some of you never did, but regardless, anxiety also makes it a lot harder for you to be objective about what's happening with your symptoms and can make it more likely for your brain to bias in the direction of negativity, meaning it can make it more likely that your brain will notice bad things or negative things in regards to your recovery versus positive things or progress. So it's really important that you have ways to know that you're actually making progress, and that's why we're having an entire video about it. I've divided these indicators up into two categories. The first category has more to do with the external factors, things that aren't in your direct control. And the second has to do with things that you're probably working on in terms of building skills to get better from chronic dizziness symptoms. And those are more internal factors. And there are way more of them, which is good news for you because those are the things that you actually have a ton of control over in your chronic dizziness recovery. So first, I'm going to quickly cover the obvious ones, the external indicators that you're getting better. Number one, you're noticing your symptoms decrease. That may be in terms of noticing a baseline dizziness come down. So for those of you, especially with 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week symptoms, which is many of you, you might notice your baseline is a little bit lower. Those of you who don't have constant symptoms might just notice that increases in symptoms are a little milder. Those of you who have attacks of symptoms, have bursts of attacks of symptoms, might notice those bursts are happening less often and that they're less intense. And that's closely related to another indicator, which is the amount of time you're dealing with symptoms. Those of you who maybe started out with 24-hour-a-day symptoms might start to notice symptom-free periods of time, Or those of you who didn't have 24/7 symptoms might notice that the amount of time you're spending with symptoms is less and less. I get asked about this frequently, by the way. People always want to know how recovery looks so that they can tell if they're actually recovering. And unfortunately, these patterns vary tremendously across individuals. But all of these patterns are acceptable ways to know things are actually changing. Another one that clues you in to the idea that you're actually recovering is that your symptoms start to change and shift. And sometimes that means new dizziness symptoms show up. Sometimes it means totally non-dizziness symptoms show up. I'm not even going to give your brain ideas, but let me just tell you, I have seen pretty much every bodily symptom you can possibly imagine show up during chronic dizziness recovery for various people. And when you see that happen, the way I like to think about it is my brain is starting to lose the fear of the dizziness symptom. And because it's still in a state of alert, it's looking for other things that might be wrong and bringing them to my attention. I have entire videos on this phenomenon. Please be sure to check the video description below. You will want to watch those videos if you want to know why your symptoms are changing as you recover. And also, as you are recovering, you might notice that triggers become less triggering. So whether that's physical triggers like movement, like certain foods, like certain lighting, you may notice that those things don't really provoke a spike in symptoms anymore or make you feel worse a certain period of time later. Or you may notice that emotional triggers like feeling really stressed out or having an argument with someone, if those things previously provoked symptoms, you might find that they either don't provoke strong symptoms anymore, or if they do, those symptoms don't last as long. So these are all indicators that you are moving toward recovery. However, I think it's really important for me to say here that these are not the things I want you tracking. I've made the case for this in previous videos, so I'm not going to go on a long rant about it here. But if you are tracking symptoms, you are telling your brain the symptoms are important. That is not what you want to be focusing on. That can reinforce that danger, fear, anxiety cycle that keeps symptoms going. That is not what you want. So I suggest focusing more on the internal indicators that I'm about to list now. Indicator number 1, you are avoiding less. Even if things are still triggering, you find yourself more willing to engage in activities or in types of thinking. We're going to talk about this in some of the later indicators, or other things that previously you were avoiding. And even if those things bring on symptoms, you're still not avoiding them as much. Number 2, you've become more comfortable with fear and anxiety and don't feel the need to immediately try to soothe it away. This is something that the incredible Claire Weeks would describe as second fear. So everyone has fear and anxiety sometimes, but when people are stuck in the neural circuit dizziness cycle, frequently what's happening is there's this initial fear and anxiety from the symptoms, and then we get fearful of the fear. We get fearful of the anxiety. So you're going to notice less of that second fear. You might still have an initial fear or anxiety response to symptoms, but you're not as afraid of it and you let it happen. Indicator number 3, when you tell yourself, this is just a brain error, this is just a prediction error, my brain's just making a mistake, you actually believe yourself now instead of immediately questioning whether that is actually true or not. When you say, I'm safe, you might actually believe that you're safe. Number 4, you are more comfortable with doubts and intrusive thoughts. You know how to make room for them without letting them overwhelm you and overtake you and send you into a spiral. Or you're getting fewer of those doubts and intrusive thoughts now. Number 5, when symptoms happen, you find yourself automatically or with less effort responding in a way that is more constructive. That may mean just feeling a little more confident when they show up that you know what to do. It may be that you automatically fall into some kind of, say, somatic tracking type of relationship with them, where you allow them, you try to notice them neutrally, you're able to make room for the fear and anxiety if they show up, but you don't feel totally derailed by them. You might even be able to visualize things going badly without feeling a ton of fear and anxiety. You might even be able to visualize yourself having symptoms, bring on symptoms and anxiety on purpose, and feel more confident from doing that because you now know how to deal with those feelings and fears and anxieties when they show up. And you know that if a symptom were to show up, you know what to do. Number 6, you find yourself forgetting about symptoms a little more often or paying a little bit less deliberate attention to them. You might even be able to look back on your day and say, whoa, that's so cool. That entire time I was doing this activity, I thought about symptoms maybe once. In other words, you find yourself scanning for symptoms and thinking about symptoms less. And I want to say a word here about this because sometimes people think that they need to deliberately work on this. And it kind of goes like this. All right, Yonit, so you're saying fear, attention, anxiety, make my symptoms worse. Got it. Okay, well, I'm having all these automatic thoughts that I can't control. So how do I stop those? And the answer to that is you can't stop thoughts, but if you can work with them skillfully and not feed them, your brain will stop producing them as often. And if you work on the other things that we talk about on my channel, things related to the stress bucket, things that make your nervous system more sensitive in general, even when we're not talking about symptoms, all of those things will cause your brain to scan for symptoms and respond to symptoms automatically the way that it is right now. So this may be something to work on deliberately in the sense that you may want to deliberately do things that are not related to symptoms, that are joyful, that are engaging, instead of sitting around and ruminating about symptoms. But you also shouldn't feel like this particular indicator means you need to fight your scanner and try to make it go away, because usually, again, this is an indicator that comes along with some of the other work you're doing. It's not something that you can really effectively work on directly by making it stop. Number 7, you can tolerate hearing about other people's experiences a little more easily. Now, this may mean you'd hop on my YouTube channel and are able to read comments. Or maybe you're in a small supportive group and you're able to actually hear when other people are having a tough time. This is not to say I think it's helpful for anyone to be in some of those social media groups that are major doom and gloom, no one ever gets better and everyone's just having a terrible time all the time. I don't think I would feel great being in a group like that, so I'm not saying you should aim for that, but aiming for being able to tolerate a little bit of symptom talk and hearing about other people's distress is something that's indicating you are becoming less fearful of symptoms. You're becoming also less superstitious that hearing about someone else's symptoms is going to make you worse. Number 8, you can talk about and appreciate your progress without that making you feel as superstitious that this is going to now go downhill because you talked about getting better, and that you can talk about your progress without it devaluing the suffering that you've gone through, fully understanding and accepting that, again, chronic dizziness recovery tends to do this all the time. So you're going to have periods of progress and periods of challenges, and that's okay. So being able to talk about your progress and really celebrate and appreciate it not only boosts your confidence in recovery, it also boosts your confidence in knowing that you are going to be able to handle tough times that come your way. Number 9, you just don't feel as much of that urge to research or Google or go to doctors or try to get reassurance from people anymore. You feel more confident that what you have is neural circuit dizziness, and you can tolerate that fear and discomfort that might come up from any doubts that show up. And number 10, you might no longer see the neural circuit dizziness as the worst thing that's ever happened to you. I certainly don't want to imply that this isn't the hardest thing you've ever been through, because for many people, it truly is the hardest period of time you will ever go through in your entire life. But one common thread that I see in people who recover is they tend to experience what we call post-traumatic growth. They see the traumatic experience, in this case, the neural circuit dizziness experience, as something that made them more resilient, that made them stronger, that they learned a lot from, that they gained a lot from. I'm going to have a whole interview and another video in which we talk about this a little bit more, so stay tuned. But I think that this is actually a huge indicator of recovery. When you get to the stage at which you say, wow, actually, I would never, ever have chosen this, and I would never choose this for someone else, but I'm getting something out of it, really good indicator you are making major, major progress and you're getting better. These are by no means an exhaustive list of all the ways that you can know that you're getting better. And again, some of these are more skill-based, so they're things that you're actively working on, and some of these are just things that occur as you're working on other skills. Keep in mind that you may not have all of these indicators, you may just have one or two, and that's okay. Just notice where you're at, notice what things have gotten better, maybe create some goals around the things that do seem to be resonating with you, do seem to be indicating progress, and you will continue to feel confident and resilient as you go through this, as we described, wild process of chronic dizziness recovery, being able to navigate the challenges and the ups and downs with a lot less suffering. I hope this was helpful for all of you. Really look forward to your questions and comments. Be sure to drop them below. You can also like this video, share it, and if you did not already subscribe to my channel, please be sure to hit the subscribe button. I look forward to seeing you in our next video. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.